Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Yourwolfsdengaming here in the wonderful world of video games and technology, and today we're going to be taking a look at Day of Infamy for the PC. Let's take a look, shall we? After nearly a month without uploading a review, dealing with personal matters, I finally have a chance to write about my initial impressions on Day of Infamy. Being a rather large fan of World War II shooters, I played some of the best and the worst World War II games out there. Some I loathed, some I enjoyed, but the vast majority simply felt meh. Does Day of Infamy hold up to the years of already existing World War II shooters on the market, or will it burn like an atom bomb baby? That joke is probably a lost cause, but it's already sort of out there, and I don't really feel like taking it out, so deal with the terrible joke. Released officially in 2014, Insurgency hit the storm on Steam by the unknown developer New World Interactive. Since then, it's had more than 50,000 reviews on Steam, it's been bundled several times, and has gone on to sell over 3 million copies. Question the legitimacy of Steam Spy, how you wish. And could probably best be classified as the best realistic version of modern shooters, complete with quick thinking, tight tactics, and a lack of bullet sponge enemies, something I wish games with difficulty scaling would take notes from. I'm staring at you, Bethesda. Squarely at you. Where does someone like New World Interactive go from there? After all, 3 million copies ain't exactly something to just scoff at. Well, they go backwards, of course. Entering the World War II scene, Day of Infamy features some quick thinking, tight combat, and brutal deaths that Insurgency had. But with a new coat of paint. Mostly in blood. But in a World War II skin. So yeah. Day of Infamy really is a multiplayer shooter at heart. Sure, it has a mode with only bots, an added plus for those good old Star Wars Battlefront 2 days, you all know what I'm talking about. But it's at heart multiplayer focused. The game has 7 maps, with 12 more being tested as of this article's publication, 2 different modes, and 3 different game types. On the offline side, the maps are divided up into campaigns, where you'll essentially play that map with game mode selected against bots. While not particularly difficult, the AI will present the average hobo with a water gun a reasonable challenge, though how many improvements they've made compared to Insurgency could be put into question, as some of the things AI did in Insurgency are still being done by the bots in Day of Infamy, or they're just trading bugs. However, most of the time involving bots was rather fun, and while the map selection currently isn't particularly great, it is enough, something I'm sure I'll regret writing later, for me. Once you're done playing with bots, it's time to join the brave dimwits who venture out and play the online mode. The online mode mostly consists of the same modes and maps as the offline mode. Once in a game, you choose which squad side you want to be on, choose your class you want, which can be edited and improved as time progresses in game, and then you're off to get brutally killed again and again and again and again. The combat itself is very reminiscent of Insurgency and its combat style. However, there are some key differences. Some of these key differences include the more floaty, jumpy playstyle of Insurgency. Sure, it's more realistic than, say, the Modern Warfare franchise, but that doesn't mean it doesn't hold its share of similarities. Day of Infamy, on the other hand, while still keeping the tactical and more realistic, another word I'll probably regret using someday, feels far slower than Insurgency, and maps are either very large or very small, with no real in-between, yet. Because of this, combat in Day of Infamy is more focused on checking your corners, whereas Insurgency always felt like a big battle of who's the best sniper, even on its smallest maps. Day of Infamy, on the other hand, loses a lot of that with, in my opinion, better overall map design and layout. No more big open space maps that are nothing more than sniper fests, rather tight, closed corridors and open streets filled with cover. The maps are better designed and better to look at visually, though not by much. They don't look technically better than Insurgency, but from an art and gameplay direction they do. However, that improvement comes with a disappointment, which is the inconsistent level design. All too often, you'll come across rooms that look gorgeous, only to find other rooms or sections of the levels or maps that look like they were assembled by a half-blind chimp during its lunch break. I couldn't find anyone, at all, to play the cooperative modes, but I did play all the multiplayer modes, which really do feel the same. All 3 of them. Don't get me wrong, they're different in ever so slight ways, but they're all essentially just variations of Capture the Point mode in other games. I'm staring at you, Team Fortress 2. With all the maps having between 3 and 5 points to capture. It's not great, but it's not terrible, though I wish there were more unique game modes on offer. Something I'd expect to see later on with new maps becoming available, though if it ever does come to fruition, you know, That's the question up in the air. The game also features workshop support, but in order to actually get to play the maps, you have to enter console commands, so I hope that Steam Workshop support is improved. However, the gameplay at its core is still fun, and matches can last a good 30 minutes if teams are fairly balanced. The gun selection is also quite nice, and my wonderful M1 Garand is still as wonderful as ever. This doesn't mean that it doesn't have its own share of issues, but there are issues I can mostly live with. The game has guts, gore, and exploding cover just released, if that's something of interest to anyone. What I can't live with, however, in Day of Infamy, is the lack of players. Well, my lateness to this party isn't excusable. It's in many ways better. For multiplayer or multiplayer-focused games, it's far better to take a look at a game later down its life, both to see if the improvements are being made and if the community has stayed around, and both statements hold even more true for things like early access. The lack of players compared to something like Insurgency is a real issue for me. Sure, it's a dedicated 200-ish people playing Day of Infamy, but it's still 200-ish people, and in a multiplayer game, regardless of what development stage it's at, that is at the very least concerning with such a low number of active players when it's only been out a few months. Insurgency was already in a bundle by this point, encouraging players to buy the bundle, and hey, might as well activate this too feeling. However, Day of Infamy's only real sale has been for $14.99, and compared to Insurgency with an active community, it's hard to truly look at Day of Infamy without some kind of move, like it being put in a bundle, from PR giving it the kick it needs. On top of this, Insurgency's $9.99, while Day of Infamy, with a lower player base and an early access, is $19.99. The fact of the matter is that due to the price, the developer is essentially fighting themselves, and competing against their own product. Sure, Day of Infamy is improved, and certainly has some things going for it, but the list of things going for it also consists of the same things going for Insurgency, coupled with the fact that Insurgency is cheaper and has more active players, which would make me question the game's lifespan as a whole. It's certainly not terrible looking, but the improvements made from Insurgency and its visuals are hard-pressed to find. It doesn't look worse, and the maps certainly look better, to at least some degree, but it's still using the same engine as Insurgency, and it looks like it. Audio-wise, it sounds on par with Insurgency, with fairly vocal bots and a fair amount of voice tracks that cycle through, though you will start to hear repeating tracks within an hour. This can be a good or bad thing, but I'll side towards neutral, because that's still a decent number of voice lines. Sound effects are also nice and crisp, helping to really bring the World War II feel to the game. You hear that, Bethesda? Maybe you should keep your voice actors in the studio for more than 5 minutes. Just a suggestion. As for the controls, they work fine. Nothing truly surprising besides controller support, and it plays just how it should. As for the settings, it's what you've come to expect, even with a nice FOV slider. I'm staring at you again, Bethesda. You know, Bethesda, maybe these guys should just make your next Fallout game. At least they can put in an FOV slider. Digression aside, the game also plays fine, averaging 75-ish frames a second on our system, and a fairly consistent 75-ish frames per second at that. An issue we did run into, if we ran the game in full screen and edited any of the settings, or tried to quit the game, my monitors would just turn black, even though the game was closed. This happened regardless what monitor configuration I was running, anywhere from 1 monitor to 4, forcing me to restart the computer. So, you know, that'd be nice to see fixed. Just saying. Besides that, the game is mostly solid, and I'm sitting here honestly wondering why they felt the need to enter this into early access in the first place. After all, if they just released this as is for $20, then released the 12 maps and called it a bonus free DLC, that probably would have looked far better on Day of Infamy, I'm going to be honest. In fact, minus the lack of players, these issues seem all too common with the issues I also had in Insurgency. I'm never really sure how to conclude these articles, since they're not reviews and they're really just first impressions, so I guess I'll conclude this by saying that I enjoyed Day of Infamy, though its arguable improvements over its counterpart game leave me in question of where its development will lead, and if they take my advice and attempt to be more proactive when it comes to sales and bundles in order to gain more players. Some other improvements besides simply additions and bug fixing would be the inclusion of Steam Workshop support and a better variety of game modes, and possibly adding another faction, like the Russians. You know, that wouldn't really go amiss either. Anyway, this has been Yourwolfsdengaming here taking a look at Day of Infamy for our first impressions video. I hope you enjoyed. I'm very late on videos. My apologies. I have 2 other games to review. Into the Ocean, I believe, is one of them, or it's something like that. That click and point game thing that came out recently. Then we also have my pickups video that has been delayed countless times, and I also have another pickup video to film. And then we also have, oh, what do we have? I have a dungeon. I have a game, something dungeon, Book of Dungeon. I don't remember what the game was called, but I have to review that as well. I don't remember if that was an early access, so might not be a review. But you get the idea. So that's stuff that's going to be coming up, probably, maybe, eventually, hopefully. Going to try and get videos more steady, at least once a week. So, yeah, I'm going to try and make improvements, and I hope you stick around for that, I guess. This has been Yourwolfsdengaming, taking a look at Infamy. Hope you all enjoyed, and have a good one, ladies and gentlemen. I'll see you in the next video.